Hello, my name is Jason Titcomb. I work for a SolidEdge reseller, LMGI, in South Portland, Maine. We're going to continue with the SolidEdge Fundamentals series. We're going to go ahead and just open a file. You should have your training files downloaded. I put mine in C Fundamentals. Now, when you open a file, you'll have a very modern Windows-based interface. So a lot of the things you can do in Windows you should be able to see here. So you have a preview pane, you have different views for large icons, small icons, things like that. So notice that you have a search field which will use the Windows search system, but there's also a filter you want to watch for. This filter, you can see obviously SolidEdge can open a number of file types. You probably want to have at least it set to all SolidEdge documents, so it'll find all and only SolidEdge files, and then when you touch one you'll get the thumbnail that's extracted from the file. There's also a great one here, top level assembly document, which will find only the assemblies that don't have a higher assembly. So that's very, very nice for opening just the highest level. I'm going to go and open just a part document, and we have a bearing block here. So I'm just going to go and open that. Think anything else on this dialog you can discover on your own. Now we want to continue with just a little bit of getting around in the software before we start creating anything. So I wanted to just open a file. Now I am in the theme as we left off from the previous movie. I'm in the Some Assistance theme, and I might switch back and forth frequently just so you can see how it may look different, but it's all really the same information. I kind of prefer this theme, the default theme. Now, let's just talk about navigation in the drawing window. So what I tend to do a lot without even realizing it is I'll click the middle mouse button down. In my case it's a wheel, but it acts as a button. So if I click and I hold and I rotate, this just rotates about the scene center. And actually if I hold the shift key down while I have the mouse down, I can pan, and if I hold the control key down it will zoom. So middle mouse, you can do tons of work for navigating the view with the middle mouse. You do also have a number of buttons here at the bottom of the screen, kind of the usual suspects that I think you can learn on your own. There's a pan, fit. You can also just double click the wheel. So the wheel does so much. It will zoom right where the mouse pointer is, of course. There is a setting to change the direction, the zoom direction of the wheel. You'll find a setting in the options. There's a rotate about a point. There's sketch view, and there's also this view cube, which I think you would easily just discover on your own, and it's very discoverable. You can just kind of poke at it and discover what that does. Then there's also some keys, hotkeys, that I have burned into my brain. You press the control key and then just imagine a view and think of the first letter. So isometric, control I, or T, control T. B, control B is bottom, control K is back, control R, control L, and control I is probably my favorite because it will get me back to a neutral starting point, and it also fits the model. So you don't have to do that extra fit. And then you'll also find a view orientation gallery, I believe Microsoft calls this, down here. And this is really sweet because these are kind of temporary. So actually trimetric, that's one that I kind of forget sometimes. Control M, it tells me right on the tooltip that that's the hotkey. This is really cool because it's kind of temporary until I click it, and it really just lets you look around, and then you move your mouse away and it will revert back to the previous view. It's also where you would name a view using the view manager. That same gallery you'll find up here. Very Microsoft-ish. A lot of these you can add to the quick access toolbar. You can really right click on any command, so if you tend to use zoom area a lot, you could right click and add that to the quick access toolbar. Now the first time you do it, it may ask you for a theme because it won't let you rack the built-in theme, so you have to make a new one. So if I right click now, I'll see themes and I see JSON, and you see if I switch back to the default, that little button right there is now gone. So that's kind of good to know. So also, if you right click in the drawing space versus right click on a model, you get a different context. Well, the context is different. That's what right click is. It's the context menu. So if you right click in the drawing window without anything selected, you'll have zoom area, fit. Common views is kind of a cube, and some other things. So zoom area is a really common one. So I'm clicking with my left mouse and I drag into a particular area of interest. Now notice the command is still running with a cross. It's still in the zoom area command. So to return to what you were doing, you just right click the mouse, and if you were in the middle of another command, it would pop back to that area in the stack. It's kind of like a stacked command. When you execute any of these view commands, they stack on top of what you were doing, and then you right click to return back. So I'll just double click to fit the view. The view quality here can be sharpened. So think view. Go to the view tab and then look in the style group, and you'll see things that will impact the quality of the view. Just look around, experiment a little bit, use your tool tips. I kind of like to have this single color edge turned on, and sometimes I'll set the color to a black. So, it's just, I like to see those nice hard edges. It helps me understand how the model is created a little bit. And to bump the quality up, you can just poke this button and you'll have different sharpness qualities. So you can see it smooths out the number of triangles that render on the scene. Another I consider kind of need to know is the radial menu. If you right click and hold, you'll get a circular menu that has pretty much any command you want, but there are very similar commands that you'll have on the main toolbar. And the inner ring supports gesturing. So for example, if I wanted to do a fit, I would swipe my mouse up to the 1 o'clock zone, and if I wanted to do a smart dimension, I would swipe my mouse to the 9 o'clock zone. So you can see how if I swipe, I'm in the smart dimension. If I go up to the right, I'm in a fit command. This can be very productive. You have to kind of remember that it's there. I think once you do, that's a very productive workflow, and then you can minimize the main ribbon and just use your main, just use your radial menu for a lot of the work. So it's 16 buttons. The outer can still be used, but the inner only are the only ones that support the gesturing. I wouldn't know which which button to hit. So the inner ring is kind of special, and that's based on the theme as well. So if you customize your theme, you'll have a different set of buttons there. And there's also a timing which you really may want to adjust. So the number of milliseconds before that I have to hold that right mouse down versus if I right click briskly, I'm in a command, so I'm going to escape out of it. If I right click briskly, I get the context menu, but if I right click and hold for a number of milliseconds, the radial menu pops up. So that's a setting, and it's set to a kind of a high value out of the box. And I would probably encourage you to go in and change that to be, I set mine to 250. It kind of depends on the computer a little bit, but if you play around with it, you'll find your happy spot. So I'm going to try to use this as much as I can, and so that's really important. So then another need to know that I consider, if you want to rotate about a certain point, there certainly is a command down here that will do it, but there's a great way. If I click the center wheel and release it, just a brisk click, you may notice the mouse pointer changed ever so slightly. And if you look down in the prompt bar down here, it's telling me to do something. It's telling me to click a face, an edge, or what have you, and then I click. And now I click my middle wheel to rotate, and it rotates about that point. So you click to get into that mode. If you pick a circular edge, it will become locked to that. And then people ask, how do I get out of it? How do I make it stop? If you click and click in space, because your mouse didn't land anywhere, and I middle click, because the mouse click didn't land on any geometry, it resets it back to the scene center. Or when you do another command like Control-I, that will also clear it. So you do middle mouse, click, and that sets the rotate point. That is extremely productive, especially in assembly. So I would get proficient at that. So you can see with middle mouse and a couple of keys, that's almost all you need to navigate around in the 3D window. So I think that's enough for the second movie, and we'll pick up with sketch creation and model creation